Welcome to Red and Yellow, the podcast about all things to do with refereeing at grassroots level, looking at the laws of football, speaking to guests, and trying to help you become a better referee, with Adam Humphreys and me, Ed Connell.
Hello, loyal listeners. It's Adam here, and I just wanted to get in early on this episode of Red or Yellow to remind you to please send in your questions about refereeing or anything you feel like you might need help with in terms of your game. That's why we are here, to help you improve to be a better referee. We really enjoy getting questions from our listeners as voice notes via email or DM or on social media. Being able to help you is why we created this podcast, and to offer our insights and to be able to help you by drawing on our experience. Added to that, if you are a very fit listener, then please don't forget to follow us on all the social medias. It's at Red or Yellow Pod. As well as remember to like and subscribe in your podcast feed. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get on with the show. Oh, hello, Ed. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Adam. How are you?
I'm well. I've got a new whole thing in front of me, which are like a pop filter, because I got a new microphone for Christmas.
Yeah, so I say happy Christmas to you, even
And
though
to
it's
you.
sort of
Merry Christmas.
now the 29th of December. But yeah, no, it looks very professional. You've now got a sort of podcasting mic and a pop filter as well, so you look the part.
Thank you very much. In fairness, my other microphone was a very, very advanced microphone, but it was almost too advanced for what I was using it for, and I didn't have the knowledge to make it good for what I do. Hence, I got this one. However, did you have a lovely Christmas as well? Did you have it full of love and peace and merriment?
I did. Thank you very much. It was pretty busy and family filled, but I'm now back in London, so that's quite nice. Nice to be back in the calm. And
wait, you're calling London calm?
Yeah, well, it is when you've sort of been at home with sort of massive amounts of family, and lots of children.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is calm. So, and I suppose we should say to our listeners, happy Christmas to those of you who will be listening to the podcast after it's gone out, and
Christmas.
Happy New Year to everybody as well, because obviously
2023.
Yeah, a couple of days' time we'll have New Year's Eve and the New Year starts. So yeah, Happy New Year to all our listeners.
Absolutely, I concur.
I suppose we should start by just mentioning the fact that Pele's died this evening. I don't know if you saw that on the news.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I haven't looked at the news because I've been working this morning, but I just saw a quick Facebook post while I was waiting for you to join. And yeah, R.I.P. Pele.
Yeah, and I've got some interesting facts about Pele later on, because I was struggling to find fun facts about
nice.
Law number 9. So we've got some interesting facts about Pele. But as you know, this evening is Law number 9, which is entitled In and Out of Play.
Isn't it the ball in and out of play? Or is it just in and out of play? The ball in and out of play.
Ball in and out of play,
Have you not read the law this week, Ed?
I've got notes on the law, Adam. And I think the general thrust of the correspondence of our listeners is that they don't think you prepare very much for these podcasts.
What are you talking about? I think that's a general thrust of Ed. I think you're starting a media campaign against me.
No, I do my best to shield you from this correspondence, because obviously it might be upsetting for you. But the overwhelming postbag is about, is Adam going to actually read the law this week?
Is
Just
it?
saying.
I haven't seen a single one of those messages, and I've looked at all of our Instagram comments and questions, of which we had loads. Thank you very much. And I don't check the Facebook that much. I leave that to you. But I'm in charge of the TikTok, and we've had no comments about whether I've read the law or not there. But you will be pleased to know that this week I have not read the law.
Well, that's not hugely problematic, because it's about 10 lines in total. But the good news is, one of the great things about getting more and more popular is we've been inundated with postbags.
It's been awesome. And we thank you very, very much.
Yeah. People have responded to our appeals for people to get in touch with us about their comments, about lovely comments about the podcast. People are giving us 5-star reviews, but more importantly, giving us discussion topics, posing questions for us. So the short law this evening allows us then to spend a bit more time than we normally would do on the postbag, because normally we only have time for sort of 2 or 3. And so I thought, I think we should start, Adam, because we have to make a correction. and I'm happy to make the correction because
right. So wait, can I just get ahead of this? Okay. So I get criticized greatly for not reading the law before we record. However, I've never had to issue a correction to things I've said on the podcast.
Well, I wasn't going to make it a personal one from me. I was going to make it from the podcast, but I'm happy to make it from me because I think I probably said this and it went uncorrected by you, obviously.
Oh, right. Okay. I knew I'd get dragged into it somehow.
But in my rush of enthusiasm to get through law number 8, which was it the start of play or something? I can't remember.
The start and restart of play.
Right. Okay. Well, as we got towards the end of that, we said, or I said, that you do the toss the coin.
Don't drag me down with you, Edward.
Toss the coin in order to decide. I said the winner gets to choose which end they attack, right? And then we left it at that, and we didn't say anything else about the toss the coin. And we had at least, well, I know that 2 very observant listeners. A friend of mine, Chris Felton, messaged me almost immediately as soon as he heard the podcast. And another listener called Trevor Cripps on Facebook messaged in as well to say...
He's from the Gold Coast. Hello, Trevor.
He's from the Gold Coast. To tell us that we hadn't quite got it right when we said that, and they're quite right. Because I think what happened, to be fair to me, I got so distracted with you telling your story about how you don't use a coin.
Stop trying to drag me down with you, Edward.
Put the whistle in your hand to, I can't remember what the phrase you used, which was to create a bit of drama or something. That's what you said.
To break the ice, thank you. It's ice breaking.
So I got so put off by that I didn't actually say the law in full. So obviously, the team that wins the toss either get to choose ends or they get to choose to kick off. Yes. And if they choose ends, then the other team kicks off. So, and if they choose kickoff, the other team gets to choose ends. Simple as that. So,
however, on that point, I would also say, you know what, minimizing options that you give the players isn't always a bad thing. So, I think, to be fair, I think I often am like, what end would you like to attack? And I just give them I give them that question to answer. And then they know that the other team's going to kick off. If they was to say to me, can I kick off? I'd be like, yeah, fine. But most players, in my experience, are just happy to choose the end and away we go.
So there we go. Thank you for our observant listeners. I suppose we should deal first of all with sort of any news that's happened since our last
Can I just quickly circle back? Can I circle all the way back to before your story about how you got something horribly wrong? And just say, in terms of the post bag, like, I think Ed and I both agree that we feel like this podcast is at its best when we're really helping other referees figure out their games and stuff. So, because we've got a lot of questions, that's awesome. Keep them coming. Don't think like people, like we've got too much to get through or whatever. We much prefer helping you and figuring out, the game for you and making you better out there than necessarily kind of laboriously going through the laws and stuff. So we do really appreciate the questions, and definitely keep them coming and keep active on our social media channels and stuff to stay engaged. That'd be awesome.
So when we last recorded, it was the England World Cup game, wasn't it?
It must have been on. It feels like forever ago.
And was that was England getting knocked out? Was it when we got knocked out,
didn't we?
Yeah. So obviously, since then, the rest of the tournament's played out, and I just thought it was worth mentioning. I think I posted something about this on our Facebook page about how well the referee did in the final. I don't know whether you saw the final or you read any of the...
No, it was on at like 3:00 in the morning.
So I think that the overall reaction on social media and in sort of the media generally in the news is that they did an exceptionally good job. The Polish referee and his team did a phenomenal job. I think I read somewhere that VAR didn't get involved in any of the decisions.
Wow.
And that included, I think, him giving giving penalties, and I think one simulation, I think, which he spotted as well. But anyway, I think generally speaking, everyone was of the view that he did a brilliant job. And interestingly, I saw that he was interviewed, and he said that Pierluigi Collina, who we've talked about before, who's sort of considered to be probably the world's best referees, and he's on the IFAB committee, rules committee, he came and saw him after the game, and the Polish referee said that Kalina was, his idol, and Kalina apparently said to him, "No, having watched you perform in that match, you're now my idol," which I think was really nice.
It's a very lovely story, isn't it?
Did a really good job. So that was good, because we hear so many negative stories about referees and getting it wrong and all that sort of stuff. I just thought it was worthy of mention that they did very, very well.
I think also it's worthy to understand, I think it also highlighted a fantastic point in terms of football refereeing and the way fans and media and stuff actually have a great bias in that, because L'Equipe, which is the French sports newspaper, it might actually just be a tabloid newspaper in France,
French sports newspaper.
They gave him a 2.5 star rating out of 10, didn't they? And it just goes to show that, it doesn't matter how good the referee is. The general comment is he was phenomenal in that game, and it just goes to show that it doesn't matter how good you are, you just can't get around fan bias, no matter what. And it doesn't matter what you do and how you do it, or how good you are on whatever stage you do it, you are always going to be at the mercy of people who do not know their stuff, because they're looking at it through the rose-tinted lens of their team.
Yeah, I think objectively, sports journalists all think that he did a fantastic job. But it's interesting you mentioned that thing about bias, because quite a few listeners got messages on various platforms to ask us our view on what happened on the 109th minute when Messi scored his goal for Argentina.
Because a load of substitutes encroached, did they?
Exactly. Yeah. So as the ball's going in, there's a sort of freeze frame that you can see, which shows that, I don't know, 2 or 3 Argentinian players have encroached on the pitch to celebrate. And that sparked a lot of people messages saying, should the goal have stood? Because this was the argument of the French media, the goal should be disallowed because there are players on the pitch, blah, blah. And I think we should just give a shout out to some of the various people that did messages, because we had lots of people messages expressing their views or posing a question. I think of all the people that messages, though, everybody was of the view, which I think we'll come to in a second when we discuss it, but that the goal properly stood. And we'll come back to the reasons for that in a moment. But yeah, let's just mention some of the people, because I think it's only fair that we should give a shout out to some people. So we had Harvey Kennedy messages, Ryan Stowe messages.
Ryan. I know Ryan. He's on the Gold Coast. Hey, Ryan.
Yes, he did mention that. He said he's never actually thinks he'd been in a course together, but you'd never referee together, I think he said.
No, that's true. He actually got annoyed that I became the fittest referee on the Gold Coast. And he then went and did the fitness test and tried to put that right. He's since done an Ironman, so I'd happily concede that he's probably fitter than I am. That's fine.
And just the last I'll shout out, chap called Ben_Sol on Instagram wrote into us about this, Isaac on Insta, and Mike, who goes under the Twitter name Victoria Guna, messages about this as well. Oh, and everybody was the same view. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Adam, the law says about people encroaching on the pitch, but do you want to just explain why it was that the goal obviously stood and rather than the game being stopped?
Well, if you take the law as read, it should have not happened because substitutes were on the field of play. However, the way I've only ever read that law, and the way I would only ever apply that law, is if substitutes are on the field of play and in active play. They're just not actively engaged at all. They're celebrating. And I'm not being funny, you've run the line to coaches, the amount of times coaches are stepping on the pitch when you're on the line or you're fourth official or whatever, and you're constantly having to tell them to get off and stuff like that. You just, if you used to stop the game every time something like that was to occur, it'd just be a terrible experience. And likewise, in a World Cup final, in any game really, one of your biggest responsibilities as the referee is managing the event. And in managing the event, stopping play, disallowing a goal for something as pointless as substitutes celebrating a goal as they encroach the field just before it goes in because they're excited, is not managing the event. That's causing all kinds of problems for the event. He would have received so much more criticism for stopping play because of that than allowing play to continue. And it's just, I feel like it's such a non-event. I mean, there's 2 other referee social media pages that kind of were it should have not been allowed because they encroached because of this law and stuff like that. And I just think it's as a referee, the laws are there, but you equally have to be able to practically manage the situation in the best way possible. You have to apply the law in a way that protects the game, not that you're not a slave to the laws. You are a manager of the laws in the game, and you have to apply them at the right times with the right amount of pressure in the right management technique, given all of the context of the game. And that's what the referee did extremely well in that situation.
And that's what the laws keep saying about, using the words at the discretion of the referee, because
exactly.
No one wants to see a referee disallow a goal by Messi in the 109th minute,
No, I'm
added
not a huge Messi
time
fan.
of the World Cup final,
Of course.
because VAR says there were 2 people 3 yards on the pitch as the ball was going in the net. So, and I think that's, I think pretty much everybody who wrote into us said, look, I know the law, but unless they're interfering with play, we don't want to see goals being disallowed for this at all. And what I thought was lovely, I don't know whether you saw this, but there was an interview with the Polish referee where he's being lambasted because of this goal. And did you see what he
show up a picture? Didn't he show up a picture of the French players doing exactly the same thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I understand why the French, football supporters feel a bit aggrieved, but I thought his response was fantastic, which is to show an identical picture that, at the other end where French players had also gone on to celebrate as well.
I also think that also shows an interesting point in terms of allowing referees to say certain things in the media, allowing referees an element of media exposure. Like, I think it does still have to be heavily controlled, and I don't think you need it for everything. And I don't think they should really be there to discuss decisions on the field. But I think that shows the power of actually giving the referees a bit of a voice in the game compared to necessarily keeping them silent. Because, like I say on the pitch all the time, silence allows dissent. And that's true in media as well. Like, if the referee stays silent and the FA stays silent, or IFAB stays silent, or FIFA stays silent on things like that, then it allows more and more dissent to pile in into the space that is, because they're going to fill that void with something. So, I haven't seen a comment about it since, really. I know time has passed, but since he did that, it's like, there you go, that's that. But yeah.
What's your view on, because there's often pundits sort of say after a game, what if we're not going to have on-field mic'd referees explaining why they come to their decisions, why can't we have referees coming out after the game and doing media and explaining, what happened? Even if it's just to say, I've looked at it again and made a mistake, or this is how I saw it. I mean, what are your views on that?
I mean, my views on pundits having any opinion on refereeing is they need to go and referee a game themselves, full stop. And then they can decide if they want to then expose themselves to the media scrutiny that would follow after their performance in a game. But my opinions on it have changed slightly. I think referees would be very good at managing that situation themselves, like a bit of media training and stuff, and they probably get quite good at managing it. I think also it would open up a bit of honesty. Like, it'd be a brave referee to come out and go, yeah, I missed it. I'm a human. There you go. But I think it would actually help change the narrative against referees. That could be quite useful. But I think it's probably fraught with more problems than solutions, to be honest. I think it could end up being overanalyzed. It could also open up referees to being influenced based on not like outwardly, but in the game themselves. Players could then use it against the referee in the moment and stuff. I also think the referees would probably end up reading and studying and looking at what other people are saying about what they did and things like that. And then that could affect the way they manage their games and stuff. I think there should be a barrier in place because referees need to be protected. But it's difficult. I think the right circumstances, the right referee, I think makes sense. I mean, obviously the World Cup referee is in a position of power right now, like, because he had an amazing game and everyone believes that, and it was a perfect game for him. And so he's in a place of power. But if he was to have made a massive critical error and then he was exposed to the media, there'd be all hell to pay. And then everyone would just be analysing that as well as the decisions, as well as everything else. And I think it probably would open the door to more criticism.
I mean, I'm all in favour of more transparency. I've said before that I think we should have referees mic'd up on the pitch.
I don't know about that.
I think it would expose the abuse that referees suffer. I think it would also help people understand how decisions are being taken. Because I think,
Yeah.
if you're a football fan watching and there's a VAR, and especially if you're in the ground, sometimes you don't know what the VAR is about, because it's fine if you're sitting at home listening to them say, oh, it relates to that challenge that was sort of 20 seconds at the start of phase of play, and you're in the ground, all it says is VAR.
Yeah.
I'm in favour of that, and I've said before I'm in favour of the way that referees are mic'd up in rugby, and I know you've drawn the distinction between them, and I just think that the giving the opportunity for referees to explain things just brings about better understanding. I get there are potential negatives from it. I understand that it would have an impact upon referees, but I'm all for just sort of bringing about more transparency to help people understand how decisions are being made.
I think also, in all honesty, like relating this back to our listeners who will have their opinions on this, we're talking about global media. We're talking about, elite level refereeing, elite level football here. There's going to be different rules. What I would say is, if you're refereeing a game and you feel like you've missed something, then transparency, honesty, openness should be the first thing you resort to. You should admit immediately that you've made an error, because that will humanize you in the eyes of every player in front of you. That will allow the players to understand that you're doing your best and you just missed it, and you're being honest about that. They might be a bit annoyed with you in the moment, but that's life, and they'll move on. And so, even though at this level we're talking about World Cups, Premier League, Champions League, whatever, that has a different set of rules to what you'll be doing on the field every single week. And I think every single week, the more honest you can be with managers, with coaches, with players, the better your game control, the better your man management will be overall. I always feel better about myself when I admit to a mistake in front of people, because I know I'm not trying to defend the indefensible of myself. And that always helps me have a much clearer mind when I'm refereeing. And I think it also helps players and referees have a better opinion of me, which in turn, when you come across those people again, makes you have a better game in their eyes. And that's always good. No one loves an arrogant referee. No one loves a referee that just shuts conversation down, that's not willing to listen to discussion, that's not willing to, and I'm not saying you have to stand there and take abuse. And I'm not saying admit to things that you don't feel like you need to admit to, but it definitely helps bridge the gap if you do, if you are just honest, transparent, and open at a grassroots level.
I agree with that. I just think and I think we had some listeners sort of wrote into us before, and they sort of misinterpreted what we were saying about honesty before, because I think that I agree. I'm honest about things on the pitch, and I think it's right to do that. I think sometimes if you think you've got something wrong, there's no reason why I shouldn't say that. And if you didn't see something, again, there's no reason why I should say I didn't see it because my line of sight was blocked, whatever. I do think, though, that is probably something that as a beginner you might not want to be doing, because as a beginner you start saying things like, I'm sorry, I've made a mistake. You've got to be able to then deal with the fact there might be some flack that flows as a consequence of that, and you might get a bit of aggro from people and suggest you don't know what you're doing. So I think it very much depends. You wouldn't want to say that 2 minutes into a game and say,
no, it depends on a lot of
sorry.
things. It depends on it, like in that situation, sometimes I don't know can work better than saying I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And it also depends on your personality type. It depends on your experience. It depends on the game you're in. If it's a really heated game, sometimes admitting to mistakes will only cause you more problems. Like everything in refereeing, just like relating this back to the World Cup final, everything in refereeing is context dependent. And that's how you manage a game. That's how you manage players. That's how you apply the laws. It all depends on the exact context of the game. Similar to the discussion we was having about, what was it? I can't remember now. It was something. It was about like when to apply a law, when not to apply a law. I can't remember. But that like you have to take in the full context of the game. You have to take in, like let's take the 7-second rule of goalkeepers. Like they've got 7 seconds to release the ball. Now, if they take 8 seconds, you're really going to stop it? No. If they take 20 seconds, maybe. Like when do you call time wasting? When do you call retrieving of the ball? It's all context dependent. And
I thought it was 6 seconds.
Oh, you might be right. Yeah, I think it is 6 seconds. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I'd like to issue an apology for my mistake in
Well, listen,
law.
don't get into the habit of issuing apologies every time you get a law red roll.
Oh, well,
Otherwise,
we're talking about
gonna have
honesty and
those
transparency.
every podcast.
Well, I'll tell you what, I thought it was 7 seconds, probably because I give goalkeepers leniency to that degree. Do you know what I mean?
Anyway, shall I do another question?
Yeah, golly, yeah, let's go.
So this is a couple of questions that are from Trevor Cripps, who, as you said, is a 25 years of experience referee on the Gold Coast. And it relates to a couple of things we spoke about in last week's or the last episode. One is he asked, is there ever any situation where there is a contested drop ball? And I think I know the answer.
I don't think anymore there is. No, not anymore.
I think contested drop balls have gone now, I think. And it's, from my analysis of the law, where there's a drop ball, players have to be a certain distance away. I can't remember the exact distance away, but I don't think there are any circumstance anymore where there's contested drop balls because it's dropped to one side and the other team have to be a certain distance away. So that's his first question. The second question also related to the last law, which says, if at kickoff a player kicks the ball back in the direction of his goal, and the defender, who was probably the person to whom the pass was intended, lets the ball go and it goes back to the keeper,
can the keeper pick
is
it
the
up?
keeper allowed to pick it up? I've done my research, but I'm going to get your views first of all.
I'm going to say no.
What's your rationale for saying no, he can't pick it up?
Because he wouldn't be able to pick it up from a free kick.
So I think this all goes back to jumping ahead to Law 12, Section 2, which is about indirect free kicks and infringements. And I think it all stems on whether or not it's a deliberate kick back to the keeper. I think that's the key. Yeah. So if it's obvious it was going towards a defender, and for reasons unknown, I don't have a problem so much with the gust of wind. Gust of wind, I think, is fine. That's not a deliberate pass back to the keeper. Or if he swings and misses, or I don't know, but that's obviously not an intended back pass either, provided it is a deliberate swing and miss, not a sort of feigned. But my bigger problem is well, what happens if the defender just simply sort of decides he doesn't want it? Let's go back to the keeper. It wasn't intended as a pass back to the keeper, was it?
Well, the issue I've got here is the word intended. You and I can't ever establish what is in a player's mind and the reasons they're doing anything. Like, I can't read minds. And the word intention, this is one reason I hate pundits. Intention doesn't exist in the laws of the game. We can never actually establish intention. And you'll know this in your work. Like, you can't establish intention of somebody's actions. You can only judge the action that has occurred, right?
Yeah, but from a legal perspective, you assess someone's intention by looking at all the surrounding facts and circumstances, right? Exactly. That's how we do it. Right. Okay. So the same way here, if it looked to everybody as though he was passing back to the defender, right? That was the intention, was obviously to pass the defender. If the defender then sort of decides not to take it, I don't think that's an intended back pass to the keeper, is my view, and I wouldn't penalise the keeper for picking it up.
I think two things here. One, I think, what does the game expect? Like, look at that. Like, what would football expect? I think they'd probably expect either or, depending on how you sold it. I think generally in that situation, the game would expect a pass back. Would expect an indirect free kick in the area against the goalkeeper if he was to pick it up, regardless of intention. And then also what I would say is, look, if you can see that happening, I do this with every pass back that I see happen on the field. I tell the goalkeeper whether I think he can pick it up or not. And then as long as I've got ahead of that, I've got no issues. So I'm like, no. Or I'm like, yeah, take it. That's fine, take it. And then and from a kickoff, you're going to have more than enough time to probably at least vocalize what your decision is going to be, and then that doesn't allow the space for dissent to come in. I think that's it. What I'd argue is, again, with these kinds of things, these situations, the likelihood of that happening is probably greater than 1 in 1 million. So we probably don't need to worry about kind of like all these little theoretical intricacies that might occur in terms of that. From a free kick, probably more likely to happen, but from a goal kick, passing a defender, getting all the way back there by accident, it's just not going to happen on a football field.
Yeah, but I did think it was an interesting question though, because these sorts of 1 in a million things do happen, and whereas with lots of laws,
did you see the video I sent you?
The answer.
Did you see the video I sent you?
Which one?
I think it was Sheffield United or someone.
The shirt coming off.
Yeah, a guy ran the entire length of the field without a shirt on.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah, I wasn't quite understanding what I was being asked to look at there.
Oh, I just thought it was interesting. Like, do you stop play? Do you stop play? Do you it's a 1 in a million? He had his shirt pulled off by a defender, and then he continued to play.
Yeah, I thought initially when I was looking at, I was looking at it from the perspective of had a foul been committed on him, and I don't think it had.
Well, it has if his shirt's been pulled off, isn't it? It's a pull.
Well, I'm not sure it's really pulled off. It's
a pull.
It comes up to put off his back, and he's more than happy for that shirt to
take it off himself.
To take it off himself.
I mean, it would have been a penalty as well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it was a pen, but I think it was a yellow card for running down the pitch. He didn't put his shirt back on because he wanted to make a point to the referee that, to say to the referee, you've missed a obvious foul on me in the penalty area.
He never became active in play, did he? So I think that makes it a much easier decision. If he'd have become active in play, then what do you do? I think you have to stop play and give a drop ball. Tell him to.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, obviously, if people haven't seen this, we posted it on our Facebook page.
Did we post it? Because I didn't.
Yeah, I think we. I just sent it to you. I will post it. Okay, we'll put it on our social media so you can have a look at what we're talking about. But yeah, I kind of thought, well, he seems quite keen to facilitate that shirt coming off, and then he kept it off because he wanted to make his point to the referee and to sort of intimate he'd been fouled, and I didn't think it was a foul on him, but
fair enough.
I think it's probably a yellow card for running about, not putting a shirt on and running along the length of the pitch.
Unsporting behaviour.
Yeah, exactly. But no, that's why I like these sorts of questions, because it's great to, as I say, there are lots of questions we get where there's a definitive, there we go, it's law X, part 4.
Yep.
But not all these things are clear cut, and these sorts of things do happen. And I think you're right about it's about context. And you're also right about expectation. And I think you make a very good point about what you say to a goalkeeper. I think the reason why this would never come up is goalies are so sensitive to picking the ball up when they're not sure, they just don't do it. So I think in those circumstances,
direction from the referee, direction from the referee really, really helps.
Yeah, and I sometimes when. Because sometimes balls go back towards the keeper and someone will say, "Ref, it's a back pass." And it's as it's going, I'll say, "No, you can pick that up." You're right. I think if you verbalise it, it takes away the mystery. But anyway, I thought it was a really good question. So thank you very much, Trevor, for those questions.
Cheers, Trevor.
And can I do one more question?
Yeah, we can do as many as you want. Time is our what's the word? Time is our slave.
Time is on our side, I think is probably...
Anyway, that's probably better, yeah.
So, the Japan question we had from Scott. So Scott, forgive me, Scott, if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Liwa is how I'm pronouncing it, Liewer. He messages on Facebook with a question about the Japan incident, Japan v Spain, where was the ball off the pitch or not? I thought we'd come back to that, Adam, if that's okay, when we talk about law number 9, because it is the law. Mm-hmm. But whilst I'm there, thank you, Scott, because Scott gave us a 5-star review.
Scott, you're a
very
legend.
Nice things about the podcast, which was really lovely. But the last question I thought we could deal with, unless you had any more, was Daniel Lane, I think is his name, messages on Twitter, I think it was, to ask us the question. Is 30 too old to try and make your primary income from refereeing?
I think it was on Instagram, but yeah.
Oh, was it Instagram?
Yeah. We've just got so many social media followers. It's just so hard to keep up.
It's 30. We do.
Sorry?
We do. I mean,
I know, it's awesome.
It is
Did you see
awesome.
our last TikTok video? It got like 3,000 views.
I know, and it was.
That's your Christmas present, by the way. People
know,
very
that's
much
what we
care
weren't-
about what you're getting for Christmas.
We weren't even talking about refereeing.
I know. God, let's not open that wormhole.
but what I would say, Adam, is our post bag is mostly from referees. But you'll know from having looked at the post bag, we get sort of messages from just football fans generally, not referees, who actually say, you know what, I enjoy listening to the podcast, I enjoy listening to you chat about subjects. So yeah, but it's not just referees who listen to us. So back to the question again. Is 30 too old to try and make your primary income from refereeing, Adam?
Having spent a few years off and coming back to refereeing sort of at the age of 35, I think it was 34, 35, 35, 34, 35, one of the two, 34 I was. The difference in my legs is unreal. And in order to make income, I mean, I don't know at what point you're starting, but in order to make it your primary income, like you're going to have to do like a number of games a day, like, because you get £35 a game. Like if you're talking about going to the elite level, probably I'd say, I mean, I know FIFA have an age cap. You can't be a FIFA referee past the age of 40, I think it is.
Right.
But the UEFA don't have that because they're in the EU, and now England's out of the EU. I'm not sure where they stand because it's a human rights issue. But obviously FIFA is based in Switzerland, so you don't have to subscribe to that. So UEFA got rid of their age cap. So technically you can at any age, but to build the experience, to build the career, to build, like, you know, you're going to have to stay extremely fit and you're going to have to be extremely dedicated in a part of your life where lots of other things will be coming at you at that sort of age, like that 30 to 40 zone. Like I'd say it takes 10 years to get up the ladder easy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. I think if you were sort of, even if you're just like a level 7 ref, so you want to work your way up the pyramid, I think it's a good 10 years to make it. If you were going to make it to the very top, I think it's good 10 years. You're not necessarily going to get promotion every year, but also as soon as you get towards that top end, it's not a sort of promotion a year. You know, you might go.
You get bottlenecked big time. I mean, and this is in the UK. I think in Australia, like here in Queensland, I think you could probably do it a bit quicker if you were good enough.
Yeah.
But equal to that, like you have to have a lot of experience, and equal to that as well here in Australia, there's not that much football to go around. So competition is quite brutal for those elite positions. And there's an awful lot of very good referees that are kind of hit a kind of a glass ceiling almost. You know, and just finding that space upwards is difficult because, you know, the people who are there are very good and they're not going anywhere because they're very good and they're established and stuff. Yeah, and if you want to just make it your primary income in terms of doing grassroots football, you're not going to get paid enough every week, I don't think, personally. And you don't get salaried until you're in the EFL, I don't think.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think that you're only going to be able to make a living out of it if you are sort of, as the UK, Championship or Premiership. I would say probably referee. I mean, assistants as well, probably in the Prem, but I know that assistants in the Championship don't get paid particularly well. I hope I'm not wrong about that. But it's just interesting. I was just Googling whilst we were sort of talking about this to look at some of the ages and the youngest referee that we've had in Premier League history. And having just sort of said about, 10 years, whatever, to get there. Michael Oliver.
I was going to say it was Michael Oliver. Yeah.
Refereed his first Premiership game age 25.
Yeah, but he probably started when he was 13.
Yeah, no, I was going to say he probably did start when he was like, early teens.
So I was really late.
Whenever you can start. Is it 14 where you can start refereeing?
I think so. I didn't start refereeing until I was about 24, 25.
Yeah, no, I didn't start refereeing until I was, well, into my 30s, in fact, before I started refereeing.
Yeah, and I felt like I'd missed out on a huge ton of experience in terms of lots of stuff that I just hadn't gone through. And like I had to stand. Luckily, I in most kind of social situations I do stand out, but I had to make sure like I stood out quite a lot, just so that obviously Essex FA knew who I was committed, and because I knew I needed to put it together quite quickly in order to even have a shot at getting onto even the conference. And I still struggle to get there. For many reasons, and a lot of it is also out of your control, like climbing that ladder. Like you've got to get the right assessor on the right day. You have to get the right number of assessments in. You have to get the right game as well. Like if you just get a 0-0 ball draw or a 1-0, 2-0 win with not a lot to do, you can't get the amount of assessor points you need to go past level 4, to go past level 5. And then you're going to start what? I know referees have like manipulated games in order to get better points. And then you're just like, what's going on? You know, like you just have to, it's a lot's out of your control. That being said, you can definitely make a lot of kind of extra cash from refereeing, and it can be very good for you in that sense. And it can definitely help. But the commitment levels are huge, you know?
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think going back to Michael Oliver again, I think his sort of progress is pretty remarkable because he started at the age of 14 as when you can become a referee and made up to the Premier 11 years. But that's, you know, he was probably refereeing lots and lots and lots as a sort of teenager. I just don't think you could start. I don't think you'd make it 11 years starting at age 30.
No, and just honestly, just fitness wise, like I know there are some very fit people out there and stuff, but I consider myself fitter than most. But you know, just the recovery in my legs, the recovery, like when I'm doing 3 games a weekend or whatever, and granted they're all very high level, it's difficult, but you'd have to be doing high level games. And also you don't get the experience you need. Kind of like level 4, level 5, you do a bit more, but in order to become a referee, you just don't get the amount of experience you need in a quick enough space of time. Really, if you're trying to put it together real fast, because I'd be lucky if I got 1 middle a month at level 4, and everything else was assisting. And I think I probably am a better referee than I am assistant. So, you know, that was difficult because you can't find a stride, and then you're getting assessed. Like a lot has to go your way. And Michael Oliver would have had a lot behind him, like a lot of support from whatever county FA he has, and rightly so. And then the other thing you have to ask yourself is, are you a Michael Oliver? Are you a Howard Webb? Like these people are one in, you know, probably 1 in 100 in terms of referees. Like they're that good.
I'd probably say more than like 1 in 5,000 to be
perfectly honest. Potentially. So, you know, you really have to ask yourself. You might be very, very good, and I know some amazing referees that aren't even on, you know, aren't on the A League, aren't on the EFL, just because there's that much working against them. It is difficult. Like the commitment alone, like finding, like balancing your job and balancing the commitment you need to referee in order to make it an elite career is difficult as well. Like you could be driving 5 hours a day just for an hour and a half of football.
But again, another good question. Those are all the questions I had from the postbag, because although we had some other questions, some of them sort of are more relevant when we deal with the law that they apply to. So I've obviously haven't dealt with everything we've had in the last couple of weeks. But were there any other questions you wanted to deal with today?
No. You pulled out all the ones I pulled out, so that's wonderful.
Cool. So let's move on to law number 9: the ball in and out of play. And I don't know. I say this every week, but I think this is the shortest,
shortest.
Well, it's shortest, dullest. The only thing that's of interest that's come out of this law is what happened, as I say, in the Japan-Spain game, which we'll come back to the listener question about at the moment. But
which is good, actually. It's good we've got that example.
Yeah, no. So that, for those people who don't remember, I think we put it on our socials, but this is where the Japanese player, it looked from all the various camera angles and still images that the ball appeared to cross the line. The actual ball was in contact with the ground, wasn't in contact with the line. Player crosses it back, goal is scored, and there was
wasn't it the goal that knocked Spain out as well? Or am I wrong?
No, it knocked Germany out.
Right. Okay. Cool.
That was the consequence of that result. But and there was a huge uproar about it because everyone's saying, oh, it's very, very suspicious. They haven't produced any of the VAR images, blah, blah, blah. Well, in fact, I didn't realize this, but the microchip technology that they've been using to improve the offside law is not used in active play for anything else, right? So they couldn't look at it, that, you know, the goal line technology just relates to the goal mouth. So they couldn't look at that technology. So the images looked, when you first saw them, as though the ball had gone out of play. And it's actually really good, because ball out of play law says that a ball is out of play when it has wholly passed over the goal line or touch line, on the ground or in the air. Right?
Yes.
That's the first part. Now, people have tried to recreate this from above, with sort of camera angles, and the bottom line is, a tiny slice of the ball wasn't over the
line.
touch line, and therefore a bit of an optical illusion, because it looked as though it was out of play. In fact, the whole of the ball was not out of play. And
what's more impressive about that decision? What's most impressive about that decision is the fact the assistant and the referee didn't believe it was out of play.
Yeah,
because it's on the opposite side of the assistant. So the assistant's looking through, he's looking through the goalposts, right, to see that, which is nigh on impossible. And, you know, as an assistant, you're working on instinct in those situations, and you just have to basically just pray you've got it right. And I would say if I saw that much of the ball out of play, I'd likely probably put my flag up. So the fact the assistant did it just goes to show how bloody amazing these elite referees are. And the referee as well, trusting his assistant to give that decision.
And interesting, I think VAR looked at it and said that they couldn't find a single camera angle that showed it was out of play. So stayed with the on-field decision, because it wasn't a clear and obvious error. But I thought it was really interesting, because when you look at the photograph, that photograph's very impactful, because the ball is touching the ground, but it's gone past the touchline, and instinctively you think to yourself, it's got out of play, but it hasn't, as you know, the first part of the law out of play says. And so I think that was Scott who sort of sent us a question about that, as to, you know, what our views were about that. So that law answers that. The next part about ball out of play says ball's out of play when the ball's been stopped, play's been stopped by the referee, obviously. And then it says the ball is out of play when it touches a match official, remains on the field of play, and a team then starts a promising attack, or the ball goes directly to the goal, or the team in possession of the ball changes. And so that is when it becomes out of play. And in those cases, it's restarted with a drop ball. And
that's a change, because when the ball used to hit the referee, you used to have to, it was part of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And you'd have to sort of embarrassingly apologise and play would
continue.
continue.
You ever had a really bad one of those?
I don't think I've ever had a really bad one. I think
have.
I've been quite fortunate. Have you?
Oh, I had one flick off my shoulder and just fall the path of an attacker, and he scored a goal. And they were not happy.
Yeah,
obviously the team that scored were very happy. And for the next 60 minutes of the game, all I had was, bloody hell, it's 12 versus 11. While you were in their goals non-stop. This was in my very early days. But that's also a massive key point on referee positioning. I was so new and naive. I didn't really know where to stand, and that's why the ball hit me. And so and that's often the case whenever the ball hits the referee. It's always a positioning issue. Not always, that's not fair, because sometimes you get players who just choose the wrong ball and you're like, why have you played that into me? It was just not the pass. But yeah, but most of the time it's your positioning is the issue if you're getting hit by the ball a lot. So if you are getting hit by the ball a lot, or you feel like you're constantly ducking and diving out of the way of the ball,
you're doing something wrong.
You definitely need to sit down and look at your flight paths, as it were, on the pitch, and think about where you need to be in different phases of play and why.
I think that's why there's a real benefit to former players being referees, because you read the game I think a bit
different
better,
yeah,
and you understand sort of what the obvious routes are going to be when a player gets the ball. So I find that I generally hardly ever find myself sort of in the line of play. I mean, sometimes it happens, and sometimes
that's because play generally on the football pitch doesn't happen much in the center circle, so you're generally going to be safe there, isn't it, Ed?
You saw the heat map. That's all I'm saying. The heat map tells the story.
The heat map never lies.
Never lies. Exactly. So that's part one of the law of play. Part two of the law of play, which is even shorter, simply says this. It says the ball is in play at all other times when it touches the match official, and when it rebounds off a goalpost, crossbar, corner flag post, and remains on the field of play, which is a point worth reminding yourself about, because
The flag post, especially.
Yeah, flag post especially, but also, we talked about when it touched a match official. It's only in those 3 scenarios where you have to give the drop ball. So it's not always a drop ball when that happens. So you just need to remember that it's when it's a team starting a promising attack, going into the goal, or possession changes. So merely touching you and the team had possession, keeps possession, that's a play on situation.
That's interesting. I would also say very like that is a situation. If that is occurring in your game, there is something wrong with where you are standing on the field of play. Like the ball should only be hitting you in the middle of a promising attack. Really, I know it's annoying, but that's when it generally would hit you, because you should be slightly ahead of play. You should be running on the diagonal, and chances are the ball is being pinged out to the wing or something. Like if it's in possession of a defender and the ball somehow hits you in that situation, what are you standing there for? Like, what are you doing?
I think that it's a point worth making that when you talk about running on the diagonal, that may not be apparent to every person listening as to what you're talking about.
No, of course, which we can get into. We can get into when it comes to, because that's in the back part of the laws, like positioning for referees and stuff. And that'll be a hard podcast to do because it's quite a visual thing. But
the point is, if you've got assistants, then you're in essence relying upon your assistants to have a good view of that part of the pitch, which means you can run a diagonal from corner to corner where there's no assistance. Your sound just keeps cutting out, by the way. I don't know whether it's your Wi-Fi or whether you moved your mic, but you keep just dropping out for like a nanosecond whilst you're talking.
I have no idea what that would be.
Might just be the net, but anyway.
Cool.
But yeah, so we can talk about that again though when we come to position on the field of play, because that was something I didn't know about, because I'd only ever had sort of either no assistants or club assistants, so it was only when I sort of started doing bigger and better games that I had people on the line for me.
And if you want like something you can just apply immediately tomorrow in your games in relation to that, is try and keep the ball between you and your assistant at all times.
Yeah, that's not good.
And that will naturally get you onto a diagonal that's appropriate for play. And generally that's a good rule that will help you.
So that, Adam, is law number 9.
Perfect.
There's not much to it, but it was relevant with the Japan game. Do you know what law number 10 is?
Yes. It is determining the outcome of a match.
Why are you looking down at that point and seemingly scrolling with your fingers?
There was a spider just running across the floor. I wanted to check it wasn't going to kill me.
There's not huge amounts into law number 10, is there? So that's even better reason for people to keep sending in their
questions,
messages and questions and the like. Yeah. So yeah, that's law number 9.
Nice.
So,
that was nice and straightforward, wasn't it?
It was nice and straightforward. All that leaves us, Adam, is to deal with some fun facts.
Cue jingle. It's now time for Ed's fun facts.
So, obviously, trying to find fun facts about the ball and out of play is not easy. So
we kind of dealt with the only sort of fun fact there would have been, which would have been the Japanese one, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just I could have talked about sort of the 1966 World Cup game or the Frank Lampard game against Germany.
Oh golly, that's more determining the outcome of the match. Anyway, can I just also say, if you're an assistant referee and the ball comes towards you and you're on the touchline, don't touch the ball, don't kick the ball, don't keep the ball in play, just let it go out of play completely. Just don't touch the ball at all. Don't go and get the ball, don't do anything with the ball, because you'll do it at the wrong time and it will cause havoc. So if you are an assistant and you kind of feel like the ball's rolling towards you and you touch it and you think it's okay,
let it go.
Just don't get into the habit of doing that, because it can severely affect the ball in and out of play. Because if you do it and it doesn't fully exit play, then where are we at? Like, just let the game be the game, because it affects the way players react. And that's the issue. Sorry.
So, detracting from my fun facts, Adam.
I'm sorry.
This is my moment.
How dare I?
So, what I've got is a few different little fun facts, which again allow you to have a few guesses, allow the listeners to have a few guesses as they're listening in their cars or on their dog walks. And then I've got some interesting facts about Pele as well, because I thought,
why not?
Mention him again this evening. So, now, interestingly, what year was it? I know you love these what year questions. There's a few of them this evening.
Oh, great.
What year was it that the back pass rule got introduced? And by that I mean, so listeners understand, so that when a player kicks the ball back to the keeper now, the keeper can't pick it up. So when do you think it was that?
1988.
Very close.
Oh, really?
Very close. Yeah, I was very close. And you're quite good at these because you normally say it's a reaction to
European Championship or a World Cup. Yeah.
So in fact, it was 1992, which is longer ago than I remembered it.
So that would have been the Denmark win in the Euros.
Don't know what it was, but that's 30 years ago. Which I mean, I thought this is something that's happened in the last 10 years. It was 30 years old, that law, and the reason for it was that the 1990 World Cup had the least number of goals scored per game than any previous ones. And what was happening was that people were exploiting this law. So if you wanted to kill a bit of time, players would just pass the ball back to their keeper. The keeper would pick it up, he'd get his 6-10, 12 seconds to kick the ball out.
Depending whether I'm refereeing or not.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Depends on the Gold Coast and Adam's involved, in which case it's a sort of different laws. So it's introduced. And as a consequence of that, I think prior to Qatar, I saw an article which said that to demonstrate how it made play much more offensive rather than defensive, there was an average of I think 0.5 extra goals per match as a consequence of that rule being introduced. So it also had an impact.
They are trying to skew the game, aren't they, to more attackive play?
Yeah, which I think is probably a good thing.
Well, we want to see goals, don't we?
What year do you think it was, Adam, that they introduced the law to stop a goalkeeper being able to handle the ball outside the goal area?
What?
Apparently, yeah, I know.
What, are you kidding me?
This was news to me as well.
Well, that must be like 1896.
It was 1912.
Oh, that's pretty good. It must have been early, yeah. Like
goalkeepers would just come out, pick it up, and do whatever they like. Well, and a couple more little dates for law changes. When did the offside law change so that the number of players needed to keep a player onside was reduced from 3 to 2 players?
What, second last defender?
Well, in fact, no, it's two players. It's not a goalkeeper and it's 2 players.
No, yeah, second last defender. Yeah. I'm going to go 1970-ish.
No, much earlier than that. 1925 that happened.
Right.
And then final question about laws and when they were introduced. When was the law introduced which said that you couldn't be offside from a throw-in?
Couldn't be offside from a throw-in. That would be 1984.
No, that you're wildly out.
Sorry.
1920.
Well, there's no rhyme or reason to these, is there? Like, it's an impossible guessing game, isn't it?
Well, not if you know your football facts, Adam. Like many of our listeners
you didn't know them before you researched them.
I didn't have to research these. This is just from
this is
from my memory.
This is the brain of Connell.
Footballing facts that I store when I'm reading articles on a daily basis.
When you're flicking through your Panini sticker book.
Now, we know the answer to this one because you said it once before, but true or false? Touch lines on football pitches must be white.
It's true.
Oh, goodness me.
That's false.
I tried to tee you up with one.
I know I'd get it wrong. No. My preference is that they're white, because have you ever tried refereeing on a pitch where they're blue?
But you told us that you refereed on some pitches. That's so why frustrating. I thought you'd get the answer.
Well, I just thought the clubs were, and I wasn't going to stop the game for it, but they should be white. They should be white. It annoys me that's not a law.
There's nothing in the laws of the game to say
that determines the colour.
White.
I know.
Yeah,
I do know that.
And then a little bit something about football pitches. Are Premiership football pitches? This is a true or false again, Adam.
This isn't really Ed's fun facts, is it? It's how stupid is Adam?
Well, that's fun for everyone. Facts which are deemed to make fun of Adam should be the category.
I need to change the jingle, don't I?
Exactly. Are Premiership football pitches 100% grass? True or false?
True.
No, false, Adam.
Wait,
false.
I didn't think they were allowed 4G pitches in the Premiership.
No, there's artificial
but
fibre.
They're synthetic. Yeah, I know that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think all the Premiership pitches have.
That's why they're so green.
I couldn't find. I tell you what I thought about this. I was at Brentford Football Club recently for a community trust football event where I met their manager. By the way, he was lovely.
Who is the manager?
It's Thomas Frank. Really nice guy. Really lovely. But anyway, I was touchline at the stadium, and you can look when you look up close, you can see that it looks slightly sort of the colours slightly off from what you'd expect for just natural grass, and that is because they're hybrid pitches. They have material woven in, so they insert fibres 20 centimetres below the surface of the pitch, and as the grass grows, they intertwine with the fibres. And something in I couldn't find an official figure for what the maximum is, but Wembley, for example, what percentage? Well, I'll ask you, what percentage of the Wembley pitch do you think is made up of artificial fibre?
60.
No.
Okay.
It's 3%. Right. And I think
that's not a lot. I've refereed I've not refereed on the Wembley pitch, but I've refereed on a Wembley pitch replica.
Yeah, St George's Park, presumably.
Yeah.
I've been there too, Adam. Don't worry.
I didn't know. I was going to say I didn't notice it was synthetic. It was just like a patch of grass as far as I was concerned.
I wasn't refereeing there. We were hosting a final there, which is very nice. But 3% at Wembley. And how many fibres let's say on a pitch like Wembley, how many fibres, artificial fibres, do you think there are on a football pitch?
Oh, like in the 20,000s, like a lot.
Well, your latter part of your answer is correct. A lot.
A lot. I love football. I love refereeing, right? But I've not actually counted the amount of blades of grass on a pitch.
Well, you take a while because there are 20 million artificial fibres.
Million.
20 million of them on a pitch where it's only sort of 3 to 5% of the pitch.
I got the 20 right.
Two more questions about pitches, then I can do you a few facts about Pele.
Cool.
Maximum height of grass allowed in the Premiership, Adam. It's a Premiership rule, so it's not a law of football rule. It's a Premiership rule.
I reckon it's probably like 2 millimeters. No, more than that. Let's say a centimeter. No, so less than that. I don't know. A centimeter. I'll go with a centimeter.
Centimeter is very short, Adam. Centimeter is sort of.
I'm really bad with lengths. All right, then I'll double it. 2 centimeters. Well,
that's closer. So the maximum is 30 millimeters or 3 centimeters.
Right? Okay, so that's the maximum.
That's the maximum. Most, though, in the Prem have their pitches cut to about 20 to 22 millimeters. That's the norm.
Yeah, because they want the ball to zip along, right?
Exactly. And final pitch question: how many miles do you think the Wembley lawnmower has to travel to cut the Wembley turf?
How many miles?
Yeah.
4?
No, it's a lot. 10 miles.
10?
The mower has to travel 10 miles to cut the entirety of the Wembley pitch.
Why? Is that because they don't store it at Wembley?
No.
That's a joke, Ed.
Oh, crikey. Well, to be honest, I thought it was just one of your completely wide-of-the-mark guesses. For a second.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Anyway, let me give you some fun facts about Pele. I'm not going to... I'll let you guess a few if you want, but I thought, just to remind us what a phenomenal player he was, he scored 1,284 first-class goals in football.
Wow.
77 for Brazil, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
He made his debut in professional football age 15 for Santos Football Club and playing against Corinthians. And on his debut, age 15, he scored
a hat-trick.
4 goals.
Wow.
4 goals.
On debut.
He became the youngest World Cup winner at age 17 in 1956 when the final against Sweden, he scored 2 goals. Santos Football Club, his first club, called November the 19th Pele Day. And they do that because that was the day in which he scored his 1,000th career goal.
Oh, that's nice. Did he stay at Santos his whole career, did he?
No, I don't know. I still honest answer.
Okay.
He's appeared in 2 films, Adam. A cameo in one film and an acting role in another film. Do you know what they were?
The Godfather?
No. Escape to Victory.
Okay. And When Saturday Comes?
No, not far off. He has a cameo role in Mike Bassett Football Manager.
Yeah, that don't surprise me. Yeah.
Where he was being interviewed, I think, by Bashir about prospects of England winning a World Cup.
Right.
Did a cameo in that. What medicinal product did he advertise in 2005, which people say led to a breakdown of the taboo of the medicine that he was advertising?
Is it something to do? No, it wouldn't be. I don't know. I was going to say maybe something to do with HIV, but I highly doubt that.
It was Viagra.
Oh, okay.
Advertised, right. It was Viagra. Mm-hmm. What increase did he bring about in the US crowds when he played in the US for between 75 and 77 when he played for New York Cosmos?
Right.
What increase in football attendances did the professional football scene undergo in those 2 seasons? I mean, it went from a fairly low figure, but
probably 30%.
80% increase.
Wow.
I mean,
now, go on, sorry, quickly.
The average attendance was only sort of 7,600, but it went up to 13,500 in the 2 years that he was there. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal, isn't it?
Where do you stand on this? Pele, Messi, Maradona,
well,
Ronaldo?
I feel a bit bad talking about this sort of on the day that the guys died. Listen, there's no dispute at all. Pele is, one of the best football players the world has ever seen. There's no doubt about that at all. I'm obviously slightly more biased because I never saw Pele play. I have had the opportunity to see, privilege to see Messi and Ronaldo play. For me, Messi is the best player that's ever played. I mean, I just think he is just the most gifted footballer. But I suspect people that sort of lived through Pele's football era might say the same thing about him. I mean, but I mean, listen, the bottom line is Pele, Messi, two of the greatest football players.
I mean, the way I look at it is you don't get Messi without Pele, and therefore Pele tops the order. That's the way I see it. And then I think Messi now wins the battle against Ronaldo, and then I think Maradona probably falls in behind. I think probably is where I would sit. I always think with all these things, like when you talk about, the greatest bands of all time, like you don't get those bands without Elvis and the Beatles. Like they have to be really high up on those lists, because you should always go to to pave the way is much harder. And football's a lot easier now than it was in the 60s and the 50s. So to score goals, it's much better skewed towards positive play and stuff like that. Like for Pele to do what he did in the context of the era in which he did it, I think you have to take that into account as well.
And I'm just going to finish off with some final stats about Pele. He scored 3 or more goals in 129 matches. He
scored 129 hat tricks or more.
Yeah.
Wow.
More, yeah.
That's
he also,
impressive.
Most goals he ever scored in a game with his head was 4. He scored 4 headers in 1 goal. But the last stat is this:
he had a headache that day.
He scored 92 hat tricks, 4 goals on 31 occasions, 5 goals on 6 occasions, and his greatest haul was a match where he scored 8 goals in professional football. There we go. What an absolute legend Pele is. So there we go. Tribute to Pele on the very sad day that he's died. And that is all of my fun facts, Adam.
There we go.
That's the lot.
All hail Pele.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Well, I suppose that's the end of the episode.
End the episode. End of 2022.
Oh, training's going well. I'm swimming well. I'm running well. I'm hoping I'll pass. I've got 17, 18, 19 days.
Cool. Well,
that'll be interesting. I'll keep
good
you
luck with
updated.
training.
Thanks.
I got a new refereeing watch for my Christmas, which I was very pleased about.
Well, we've got a question that we're going to get to soon, haven't we?
About equipment.
So we'll cover that maybe next week.
We will, because I also want to talk about the tech that I use when I referee as well, because that's another interesting topic of conversation.
It is.
But other than that, we disagree on.
Perfect. Well, thank you for listening. You have a lovely week, Edward.
You too. And like Adam said at the outset, please do get in touch with us. Give us a review, especially if it's a 5-star one. If you don't like the podcast, send us a personal email and tell us why. We'll try to do something about it. And keep on sending in your messages because we love to hear from you.
And we really do. It really does light us up when we get questions and messages and comments and discussion. It really does cheer us up a lot. So thank you.
It does. Yeah. So that's it. Have a lovely week, Adam.
You too, my friend. Happy New Year. Bye. Happy New Year, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Red or Yellow. You're clearly a very fit listener. May I gently remind you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tell all your friends. And don't forget to please share it with any colleagues or refereeing groups that you may have. Good luck on the fields out there this week. And if you have any questions, please send them in to us. Voice notes can be sent to redoryellowpod@gmail.com. or you can contact us on social media. It's @RedOrYellowPod. Have the most wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. Ciao, ciao.